term for the County Clerk. Reference Communication 876, introduced by Mr. Yoshimoto. First reading June 4th, 2014. Note, second of three required readings, a two-thirds vote of the entire membership is required to pass each reading pursuant to Section 15-1A Hawaii County Charter.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Bill 253.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Yoshimoto and seconded by Mr. Iligan.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Yoshimoto.
Briefly, council members, during the interim from the last meeting till this meeting today, I've had some time to think and contemplate about the merits of this bill that I'm putting forward. At this point, I'm just going to talk out loud really briefly about why I believe Bill 253 is good, and I'll also address some of the pitfalls or things that could not be as positive or as good as it can be. Basically, the purpose is to provide stability to the office of the clerk. We've seen, or I've seen, the clerks change every term, every 2 years, and that has had a direct impact on the learning curve of the clerk's position. And this is not any kind of a evaluation or commentary on each individual clerk, because each individual clerk that we've had that I've seen, they've had their strengths and weaknesses, as we all do. But this idea came to me by just being here for now our fourth term and just seeing the position change with every council. And while that has seemed to work okay in the past, my thought always is that if we can make things better, we need to change it up a little bit. So I think if the voters decide to approve this, should this pass this council first, of course, that this will provide an opportunity for us to do things a little differently. I'm a firm believer that if we do things the same way all the time, then we're bound to get the same or similar results. And so this is an attempt to make it better by providing stability to the office that will help the staff and the public being served by the clerk's office, as well as the council. I recognize that this puts the responsibility of selecting the clerk to once every 6 years, and it's something that could be bad in the sense that if the council or whoever is unhappy with the selection, the clerk can only be removed with 6 votes for cause. For cause basically means something related to their duties that they're not performing. And so, like anything else, council members, I'd like to hear the input from the rest of the council. I believe this is making it a little bit better. And there was an amendment in the past trying to make it to 4 years. I didn't support that, of course, because that kind of defeats the purpose. I think either we stay status quo or we try and make it better by providing stability. Really, the next council will have the opportunity, if this should pass this body as well as the voters, to make that selection. That is something that I trust the next council will do with due diligence, with great responsibility. I think the council will make the right decision, whomever they choose, should this pass. But council members, I welcome any input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshimoto. Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also was thinking about this, and there is a suggestion of an amendment that I would like to see where the council members would think it would be necessary to do this amendment. One of the pitfalls that I see with this amendment is that if we do hire a newly hired county clerk, we're kind of testing them out for a duration of 6 years. So one of the things, a suggestion that I would like to make is actually, if there is a newly hired county clerk, then within the 2 years, there's an option to renew for 4 years, making it 6, and then after that, 6-year renewal every time after. That's only when it's a newly hired. If that clerk has already been in that position or has already had that renewal, then they would be renewing every 6 years. The reason why I'm suggesting this 2-year test period is because there might be a point to where we newly hire a clerk and we find out within that 2 years they're incompetent of their job. I don't know what would happen. With this current bill, it would be for that whole duration of 6 years. However, if we find out that they are incompetent within that 2 years, then they wouldn't be able to have that option of that renewal for 4 years. And then, but if they do take that option of the renewal, then every 6 years it would go. It's just a newly hired county clerk. I hope I'm relaying this properly. Thank you.
I'm not sure who was next, but Ms. Poindexter, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, thank you. I like what Councilmember Elegant is saying, based on evaluation, and it could be worded as such. Every 2 years, upon evaluation, we'll have a continued. Because you could be it's like a contract when you have a 6-year contract, and a lot of times with contracts in the state or whatever. It can be renewed based upon the assessment of the organization. And in this case, it's an evaluation of the position and how well the person is doing to continue on into that 6-year term. So what the correct, I would suggest that human resources get involved. I would say pass it. Can we pass it as it is and then get human resources involved to look at the process of how this works when, I don't know, or does it have to be written into the bill? That is my question. Because when we come up, we're going to have to come up with some of the conditions at a later time on the qualifications or whatever, so that's my question. I don't know if it has to be written into a bill. If it has to be written into the bill, then I would suggest that we speak with human resources to make sure that we have the proper terminology. Thank you.
Mr. Yoshimoto, would you like to respond?
Oh, yeah, just real briefly to address Ms. Poindexter's question. Yes, I believe that portion would be needed to be written into the bill so that it's specific. In other words, initial 2-year term, authorizing subsequent 6-year term. Something like that I think would be good. And then, well, that's to answer that question.
And just regarding the process for charter amendments, this bill needs to be have one more reading. But if we amend it at the last reading, we would be subject to holding it over. So I'm not sure how we're going to proceed, but I just wanted to say that if it's amended at this reading, then it can go to the final reading with the completed amended language. Ms. Willie, I think you...
Yeah, I think so. I share those same concerns, getting locked into a 6-year appointment. I was one, and I think I look at it a little different, maybe after the first 2-year term, and possibly we could amend it along what we have here, along the line of saying after the first 2-year term, the county clerk may be appointed or shall serve for a period, maybe appointed for a period of 6 years and thereafter. Just so you have the first 2 years, then the council is can assess and that person can assess. So they would have a 2-year, and then okay, from that point on, you buy into the 6 years. That's one point. And then the second I have is, I think it's important to recognize that this isn't an elected position and that the way the charter reads, it's the council that appoints the position. But we do this all before we come into office, and the way it happens in fact is really we can give suggestions, but right now it's the chair who's making that decision. Now, I believe and commend our current chair, made very good decision. You know, I don't know what's going to happen going forward, and I may be a member of the public, and it's all behind the scenes. You then have that person, the person who's the clerk, appointing the deputy clerk, but basically it's the chair that appoints them and is the boss to that position, which is somewhat different than saying the council picks them. One of my questions, and nothing is said in here where it's done, is I would like us to make that decision in open council. I don't see why that has to be done. If it's the council's decision, then why don't we discuss that before the public and not have it be something that's behind the scenes? Now, there's nothing one way or the other in our rules, but I just would like to hear any other council members comment. I mean, basically, we're investing this decision in whoever is the chair. So I'm always like, it's great how it is, but what if I can see in the past maybe I wouldn't feel so good about who had made the appointments. So I'd just like to hear if anyone has any comments. I'm just thinking out loud.
Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think these are interesting. This is a good discussion. It's kind of a catch-22 in the sense that if we get somebody great, it's great to have them for 6 years. If we don't get somebody that's that good, 6 years could be a long time. I think there's a fail-safe in here, though, of being able to vote them out by a 2/3 majority, and that's almost a that's basically at any given. They're on. That almost gives the ability at the beginning to have that probationary period where you're checking them out, because it is that 2/3 vote. It would be the council choosing to keep them or get them out. So I do like the fact that it doesn't lock them in to that, and it ultimately doesn't make it so it has quite that stability anyways, because that option is always there. It has the intent for it, which is a great thing, and I think in a lot of cases that might stay, especially with a really great clerk. But it could change. This could still change every term with a new majority. Into the discussion about choosing that clerk in open session, almost as if we chose other positions. I think there's a challenge, and maybe Mr. Yoshimoto can speak to this. The way I understood it is like the clerk basically has to be ready with us as council members when we get sworn in. There can't be this time period where we have a council, we don't have a clerk. Maybe there could be a position of a staff position that held that for an interim period of time of a week or two until that could happen. But there has to be that. I mean, granted, too, that won't be an issue if there's the clerk for 6 years, too, because you're coming in, the clerk's already there. So I think it's probably going to make it more, I like the idea, it's probably going to make it more complicated, though, to have this probationary period, because it's basically in there with this ability now. The only way to maybe loosen it up would be by saying a majority vote instead of a 2/3 vote. That would give a little bit more flexibility, but also potentially make the if there's a majority split that's more challenging, it could get funkier. Where I kind of like the 2/3, where it's more of the will of the entire council. So I think that's the fail-safe in there, is that the council can vote them out. And with that, I'll support this, because it does have that intention. We get somebody good, like Stuart, they could maybe stay there for 6 years, and that would be that intent. So at this point, I'll support this. Thank you.
Ms. Ford.
I have the same concern as Ms. Willie and Mr. Kern. I was going to ask Mr. Yoshimoto to explain how the clerk will be chosen if this passes this November, because we do have to have a clerk in place on December 1st, the day of elections, and we have to present that to the council as a piece of legislation. And that, again, makes it a political appointee, as Ms. Woolley has indicated. And if you put a probationary period, it becomes a more political situation, because if you have a council majority or supermajority that says that we just don't like that person, then they get rid of them, and then we're back on a 2-year cycle, because anytime you put a probationary period of 2 years, you're saying to whoever's going to be hired, it is a 2-year thing. If we don't like what you do, or we don't like you, or you're not making rulings the way we want you to make rulings, because I was the victim of a clerk who used to make up rules and apply them to me. They weren't even in the manual, the procedural rules. So what you're doing is basically appointing somebody, a political appointee, for 6 years with no qualifications whatsoever. And I think that's a problem. So, yeah, I would like Mr. Yoshimoto to explain how we're going to get a clerk and have the council choose them if there's no council.
Okay.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Multiple questions. Let's see.
How do you choose the clerk for the next term?
How do you choose the clerk for the next term? There's several scenarios, and it's up to the next council, whomever are elected. So, let me finish. One option is you can just select the clerk during your organizational meeting. You know, you were able to do that and talk freely amongst yourselves. You could do like Ms. Willie suggested and have it in open session as well. That's always an option. You could have whoever is the clerk at that time ask that clerk to stay on as a holdover. I mean, that's always possible. I mean, it would be like a 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So, you know, it's not hard to figure out. But again, it's not for us to decide, because that's going to be the next council that's incoming. So I think that hurdle, Ms. Ford, you know, can be done fairly, I would say easily, because the next council will make that decision when they talk. So, you know, the options pretty much are wide open as far as that. And, you know, if the whole point is to take the politics out of it, because I think, like, similar to appointing the legislative auditor, that's the basis for that. You want someone qualified. You want someone that's going to be here for 6 years. You want someone that's going to dedicate themselves to the job. When I say the job, means all of their responsibilities. So that's why the purpose is to trust the next council to do their due diligence and make those determinations to make the right decision, whether it can be done quickly with whatever qualifications. I think having it wide open gives the council that discretion. I think that's important, because I think, well, anyway, we talked about the qualifications before, but I don't want to take your time, Ms. Ford. But or the other option is we leave it the way it is. And, you know, council members, I'm perfectly okay with doing that. It's just that my thought is that we've done this way all the time. And if we like it this way, then fine. I mean, I'm seriously, that's okay. I just want to say that sometimes we need to look at it a little bit differently. So anyway, I'm sorry, Ms. Ford.
No, that's fine.
You still have the floor.
Thank you. I actually like one of your ideas, and that is to hold over the current clerk until the next council develops some qualifications. I realize this council doesn't want to have qualifications. I personally think those are very important, and hopefully the next council will feel that qualifications are important. I mean, you could get somebody with a bad driving abstract, and you got the clerk driving all over the county, so that would be a problem. The other problem is, though, is that the clerk is supposed to be a neutral party. That is, the clerk is never supposed to take a position on council policy. And unfortunately, Jay and I can tell you that over the years, that has certainly taken place. And that is why Mr. Abbott has suggested an elected position. While I'm a little hesitant about the election, I can see, based on the fact that this is a 6-year political appointee that with no qualifications at this time, that's all we can base this on. We can hope the next council is going to do something reasonable, but you don't know that. And so I can certainly understand where Mr. Abbott is coming from when he says that this should be an elected position. That way the clerk reports to the people. He or she is not there to pander to any particular faction of the council. They're there to take care of the job of being the clerk. And the more I look at this, 6 years, which I supported 6 years, I think it should be an independent clerk, and I think they should have some basic qualifications. And as I said, I won't go into the qualifications. You guys have already voted that down. So At this point, I'm faced with a 6-year term, no qualifications, nothing about being a neutral party, no job description other than being the clerk and the custodian of the seal, which those are not qualifications, those are duties. So I look at this thing, and I have to say that I think Mr. Abbott has hit the mark, because if I'm faced with 6 years and no qualifications and no requirements at all, then it starts looking to me like maybe we should be electing the clerk for 4 years by the populace, and the clerk do the research on the national problems of county clerks. And I'm not talking about county clerks that also act as the recorders, just county clerks handling elections and the staff and all of that. When you look at the statistics nationwide, it is true that a clerk that reports to the people is going to make sure that they get as many voters out there signed up and in the voting booth, and we do have the worst track record in the nation. And I won't go into all the reasons for that, but that is a fact. So while I really like 6 years because we're on a 2-year election cycle, I cannot support this because of a political appointee. I can see it coming right now. This is going to be a political appointee. I had a couple people call and suggest that you wrote this for yourself, Mr. Yoshimoto, and I know you did not do that. I'm saying publicly, I know you did not do that. But I did have those questions come to my office. And I can understand why those questions came up because of the way this is written. So I will not be able to support this as written. Good luck to the next council. You're going to get maybe a bunch of new people that don't know anything. Oh well, we kicked the can down the road on this one. Thank you.
Come next.
I think Ms. Poindexter was next, unless you wanted to...
I was for...
Oh, you were?
No, yeah.
No, she hasn't talked at all yet.
Okay.
Right. Ms. Poindexter.
Okay, so I just want to say that what Councilmember Ford had said earlier about that this council does not want qualifications for the clerk position, that's a false statement.
Excuse me, point of order. Point of order.
Excuse me. I'm going to...
I have to say that we are not supposed to be making disparaging remarks about each other, but Ms. Poindexter repeatedly tries to imply that I'm lying, and I'm tired of it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ford. Ms. Poindexter, you can go ahead and maybe without specifying the name.
So a statement was made earlier that this council does not want qualifications, which is an untrue statement because I know at the last discussion on this, we talked about the need for qualifications. Unfortunately, what was brought to the council, we didn't agree with, and we all agreed that there should be some qualifications put in place. I do agree with that, and I agree that it should be done at the next council, with the next new council. And I trust the people of the County of Hawaii to make the best choices when they vote. So the people that are coming in are the people that they voted for, and I trust that they would make the best decisions, and they would be qualified to sit in the position because the people are voting for them. So the people are qualifying them to be here. So to say or to hear that, you may get some newbies, people who sometimes are newbies are the best people with the most life experience and qualifications that any council could have. So I trust the people of Hawaii County to make the best decision, and I trust that we will have a good council each year, and that's the people's choices in each of their districts. So I trust that this will happen. We look at who's coming back now, too, and I trust, Councilmember Drew Kanuha is definitely going to be back, and he supports qualifications. I've heard some of the discussions, so I do trust this. I am supporting this. I think this is a good thing, and I see what's happening with our clerk now, and it brings stabilization to our council services. So I'm definitely voting for this. Thank you.
Let me see if anybody else wants to comment during this first round who hasn't had a chance to speak. Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I had an issue with it previously, and hence why I voted Kanalua. But I did agree with the need to have a stable position. I kind of agree with a lot of the statements about qualifications with what everybody's saying, to be honest. It's important to have somebody qualified for this position. Whether 6 years was the issue that I had, I agreed with 4 years. I'm still having an issue about sending this to the voters. To the voters to vote for is important, but whether I'm going to vote for it or not is still up in the air. I do agree that we do need stabilization, though. As for having the clerk, I just wanted to comment what Ms. Willie said earlier about, having it open in the public. We do vote on it as a council. It is brought to the public. I know it might have been chosen previously of who the person is, but everybody has an option of who they want there. They all have that option of if they vote for him or not. It is brought to the public for discussion about the qualifications of the person. Anybody can bring it up. So I just wanted to say that it is, I know it's not as public as you would probably like it, but I thought that, when we do vote for a clerk, the person is right there. We can qualify them at that time as well. And be voted by a majority. But I just wanted to say I'm still kind of iffy on this one. Still looking for more options by other council members and see what everybody has to say before I make a decision on this. But thank you.
I think Mr. Kern has asked to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. First, I think that I like the idea of the holdover of the existing clerk. That would actually make maybe for a month. I'm not sure if the proper place to put that is in here or in another area in our rules or whatever that would be. I think that would make that process even a little bit less stressful, and it would just happen. So I'm open to that. That's fine. As far as the qualifications go, I think we all talked about that, and it wasn't that we don't want qualifications. It's that I personally don't think, and I think a lot of us agreed, that the qualifications aren't meant to go in here. Because if there needs to be a change, if there's an adjustment that needs to go along, it's better placed in an area where you can do that, where the council can just vote on it. You may send a resolution, a communication in, whatever it is, to change that and not have to go back for a charter amendment to change the qualifications. So I think it's challenging when a person makes disparaging remarks about the whole council, because when that happens, I feel like my name was said because I'm sitting here. It's no different than pointing out somebody's name, and I think that's where there's a big gray area. If you're going to go, if someone's going to go there, it's probably going to come back, and it's just hard whenever somebody says the whole council when it was clearly stated qualifications are a good thing, qualifications are important. How and when and where to do them, that's all that we got into. And I think we could even have qualifications in this term, because this is going to get voted on. It's possible, or at least have it, or have the intent or a reso or something in place for the next council to say this is where we were going, you want to take it and run with it, or maybe we could vote on it and close it out before that happens, depending on what this is voted on. So that's all there. It's just, is this the right place? And it's hard when there's statements that are made that say that we're doing something completely different, and I just don't think that's cool. So I'll support this. I wouldn't know how to, or what's the best way to do the holdover with the clerk, or if that's something that we want to go down, or if that's something we can do in a different area, and we can just keep moving this forward and kind of work out some of those kinks over the next few months of anticipation of this maybe getting approved. So again, I'll support this, and any of those kinks I'm really open to working out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gregor did speak in the first round, but I'm on the second round now. Oh, fresh. Mr. Onishi?
Yes.
Did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, when we selected the clerk for this term, we also, I guess, had selected the deputy clerk. That's the process where the council members have to do the selection, and that's their right. Okay, it talks about people are talking about getting the politics out. If you guys really want to keep the politics out, because like I mentioned just earlier, the majority selected the clerk and also the deputy clerk to be in their job right now. But to have, to keep the politics out, the best thing would be is like what I guess Mr. Abbott from out in was mentioning, that it should be an elected position then. So instead of having the selection done by the council, it should be done by the people. And then that way, that clerk, and then also we would maybe have to have like a deputy clerk that has to be elected, or just one person that will be elected, and they would have to answer to the people. Okay, and so that's what I'm kind of getting this, listening to all the discussion. To me, this would be the most fairest way, and in keeping politics out is to have this position as an elected position, and that you would keep out the politics. But to me, I look at this as having to be, we need strong leaders, and it starts from the top. So as the majority and the chair, they gotta be stable. Okay, because basically the clerk gives the council members advice between the Roberts rules and the procedures, but then also the other duty is to be like the office manager and to make sure that the council services, committee services are being run properly, and that they're functioning to its 100%, and that everything, the morale and all the employees are happy. And so if you look back and see how council services and how committee services are, I don't think we had that. And so to me, it's like, how can the council members and the chair put the burden upon the clerk and say to the clerk, okay, it's your responsibility. You're the one going to have to make sure that everything's stable and that everything is under control. But the bottom line comes down to going to be the council members. We're going to have to take the responsibility. So if we don't want that, then we should go where, as Mr. Abbott said, let's go to an open election and let the people decide. And then the people will decide if that person should go for the next 6 years or the next 4 years. So that's something to think about. But like I said, the buck stops at us. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Yoshimoto would like to respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While we've been talking about hypotheticals now, so I know there's no pending amendment or anything, but basically as far as the electing the clerk, I think there's a systemic problem or issue, because the clerk is the chief elections officer, so you would have to change everything up, because I don't think you could have the obvious problem there. So there needs to be a separation from elections, but that's not for the discussion today, so that's just a side note. The council members, I think all those points are valid. It's just a matter of whether you want to keep things status quo or if you want to, go for something a little bit different, which I think does provide stability. The process is always going to be considered partly political. That was the same case with the legislative auditor, although we voted on that selection, and so the process can be similar, it can be different. Right now, the amendment is simply worded to give the council the discretion to decide decide what qualifications the council feels to be appropriate. The charter needs to be something very, like I said, simple, and then we could specify further whether it's a code or council rule amendment as far as specific duties and things like that. That can, easily be done, like Mr. Kern had mentioned. So, council members, it's up to you on whether you're comfortable with this or not. Like I said, I'm just trying to present this bill in the fairest way possible, and if it's something that's not comfortable with you, that's fine too. I just want to make it better, really. And if you really feel like it's not going to make things better, then vote no. I'm completely okay with that. I just think that doing things the same way, we're going to end up with the same result. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willie.
Okay, last time I voted against this, and basically I leaned towards maximum of 4 years. 6 years just seems like a very long time for me if it's somebody that I'm not confident with, and there have been clerks and deputy clerks that I was not confident in. So I am afraid. There's a certain amount of fear here. I do appreciate you bringing this forward. Like, as you know, I like to bring things, let's discuss it. You're trying to make it better. There are pros and cons. I do also agree with Ms. Poindexter in terms of Mr. Kern, in terms of the qualification issues, and disagree with you, Ms. Ford. I think that really the question is, where do we deal with qualifications? I don't feel putting them in the charter is the right place. So that was my opposition. It's not, do we not care about qualifications, but it's really, where do we deal with that? Second, also in terms of qualifications, and I don't want to repeat myself, is that this is a lot of people skill. It's not just, it's here we are, we're all in a sandbox together and knocking down each other's castles, so to speak, and someone helping who's good at making peace and who's peaceful and good in that way. So it's not just hard how many letters you have after your name or where you went to school and what your grades are and everything else. So it is a position that's a good coach or referee kind of thing. So I do want to say, we keep talking about trusting the council. I find a lot of it is, who's the chair? I don't feel empowered in terms of as a council member on these decisions. I appreciate what Councilmember Kanua said, is that yes, they do come forward here, but pretty much it's, you can talk to the chair, but he's going to make a decision, and then you don't like going, no, I really disagree with this decision. I would rather the public see us discuss it. And maybe that's, to me, is somewhat as a compromise towards, it's not election. I'm not sure Stewart would have run if it was election. It's not sure that you want somebody that wants to get out there and a campaign person. They're more behind the scenes, can sort of juggle, and that. So I have some hesitation on that, but I do, I don't want people thinking, okay, the council, I didn't feel I had a role in that. And also, just to correct what I think Councilmember Onishi said, is that the council also chooses the deputy clerk. In the charter, it is the county clerk chooses the deputy. So you basically have a very powerful chair selecting the clerk, and he is beholden to the chair. When it's come down to where there was a disagreement, it's the chair's decision. He's the one that comes down. He's the boss. So you're empowering, making the chair very powerful. These positions are paid close to twice what council members are paid, including the deputy. I'm not quite sure how it works out now, but we're talking very high positions, and that was why I felt, okay, I worried we weren't going to get a legal specialist. Let's maybe make that deputy position, sort of overlap and put someone who is an attorney and someone who's able to really fill two goals through that position since it is so high paid. So I guess for me, I'm still having a hard time at least jumping from 4 to 6 years. I would like to have our deliberations in front of the public. I think that makes it a little less political, and for me, it makes it more that that person's going to be accountable to me, not just to the chair. So I'm not necessarily opposed. I don't know how I'm going to vote, but I'm still stuck on the getting from 4 to 6 years, and it just seems like a big period of time. Okay, I yield. I just want to share my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel at fault for actually starting this conversation regarding that suggested amendment. I do want to, after hearing everybody's discussion, I do want to say this provision regarding the 2/3 vote of its membership may remove the county clerk from office at any time for cause. I think I would, in 2 years, if it's a newly elected clerk, I would bring in a blank resolution stating the removal for the clerk and leaving the clause blank, and then we can have the discussion in 2 years. Because you never know what might happen on the floor, just to kind of have that discussion. But that can happen. So I felt the suggestion that I made earlier, it doesn't really need to be on here since it can happen in the future. But I do want to, since we are having discussion, I do want to ask Councilmember Willie and also Councilmember Onishi, just point of information, because I keep repeatedly hearing it. Also Councilmember Ford, but first, Councilmember Willie, if I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
You keep on saying it gets political. What is your definition of it being political? What is that for you?
I'm not sure I said that. I'm not the one that...
I think it was...
Okay, I apologize. Councilmember Ford, what do you feel what is your definition of political?
My definition of political is when one person, i.e. the chair, can select a clerk and present that on the first day of the inauguration as the clerk. That is a political appointment. I don't care what else you call it, but it's a political appointment because all we get to do is vote on it at that point. That's what I mean by political.
Okay.
We've got one person making the decision out of 9 of us political.
Okay, so this is just my opinion regarding what you told me. What has happened in my experience is that the chair has suggested a clerk, and as a body, we all had the opportunity to vote it down or vote it up. I don't think it was the chair who said, this is going to be the clerk and that's it. We all had participation in our vote to influence where that clerk would go, if that clerk was going to be appointed or not. So I don't see how, regarding your definition, that's political, because he did not have all that authority to say, this is the clerk, that's it. It was actually this body who appointed that clerk with their votes, just like how we do anything else regarding resolutions, bills, and so forth. And I want to ask also Councilmember Onishi, what is it regarding political that you also feel?
Good thing you asked me that, because I was listening that people were saying that we need to go to 6 years because they will keep the political aspects out of it, because every 2 years it becomes political. So by having 6 years, comments were made that it's going to keep the political out of it.
But what is political?
Well, what is political?
Well,
you can, because what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that it was mentioned from comments that why we want to go to 6 years is to keep the political out of it.
So that's why
Yes, and that's why I'm saying, if you want to keep the political out of it, then like do as Mr. Abbott said, let the people vote on that position. Because we all know, the majority selects the clerk, like you mentioned, okay, that we all vote, right? And I've been on for 3 terms, and the majority always selected the clerk. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to understand your definition of political. So I was just curious because I keep hearing it over and over, and I just want to find out. It's so vague, and just the concrete definition of what they think it is. But I want to say the clerk is here to support the members of this council, and the majority appoints the clerk, just like the majority appoints the chair at any time. We can outvote the chair and replace him with another chair. That happens. So I just feel like we all have one vote in this 9-member council, and we all have different opinions, and we all have different perspectives, and we try to do our best to make the right decisions for the county, and hopefully, to be honest, I feel that we are making the right decision here, and I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I got several things. I'm going to ask Corporation Counsel to come up, and I'm going to make a statement, and then I'll ask her questions after she gets up here. You will notice in Section B it says the county clerk shall serve for a period of 6 years. That does not allow a probationary period. It goes on and says we can remove them with a 2/3 vote. There is no probationary period here, and I know you didn't write an amendment, you're just discussing it. I don't have a problem with the discussion. But as written, there is no way to do a probationary period. The next thing is that when we hired the auditor, and Jay and I have been through this once already, and now this is the second time, and we did it because we invited applications statewide for the first time and nationally the second time. And I agree that the clerk has to be a people person, absolutely. But just because you've got qualifications and certifications up your arm does not mean you're not a people person. We got people persons for the auditor both times because we went through the process. We had qualifications not only from the charter, but then we had our own set of qualifications. And this time Val was really good that she brought us some HR information, and we used that. But we went through a very, I can't call it scientific, but we went through a very rigorous process. And we weeded out all of those we thought we didn't think that they were appropriate. And then we interviewed, or you guys did because I wasn't here for the interview. We interviewed people, a group of people, and we said, as a group, who do we think is best out of this group of people? And we selected Bonnie. And we did a fabulous job the first time, and we did a fabulous job in choosing Bonnie. So because people have qualifications and experience or youth or age doesn't make any difference, you're hiring the person for their qualifications and also their ability to work as a team. Whoever is going to do this is going to be doing the same thing if the council does it rather than by an election. However, I need to point out that as written, this is a 6-year term. Now, if you guys want to come up with qualifications using HR or anybody else, fine, go do that. I would like to correct the record, though. When I brought those qualifications, whether they were in the charter or out of the charter, is immaterial. I explained that those particular sets of qualifications is what other municipalities were doing. And I specifically said we don't need to use these same ones. We could make them tougher. We could make them easier. We could use completely different ones. I said that. And so, despite the fact that some people on this council keep saying that I insisted that they be just those things, I brought forward a written amendment, not just to talk about, to show the kinds of things that we should have. If you didn't want it in the charter, I don't have a problem with that. But you didn't want it in the charter, and you specifically, several people on here trounced every single one of those qualifications for whatever reasons. And then, okay, so enough of that. So if you want to do that, fine. Now, for the Corporation Council, what in the charter, in the section regarding the county clerk, what allows us to or disallows us from having a holdover clerk while the next council goes through whatever process they're going to devise?
Good morning, Council. Corporation Counsel Molly Stebbins. As I read the proposed amendment, it sort of does have a holdover provision because it says that the county clerk shall serve for a period of 6 years and thereafter until a successor is appointed.
Okay, I didn't state my question correctly. Right now, this is hasn't been voted on by the electorate, so it doesn't exist. So what would give us the right currently, and there may be something in here, and I'd like you to comment on it, that would allow us to hold over the current clerk while the next council does whatever they're going to do to pick the permanent clerk for 6 years. What allows or disallows us to do that?
I don't see anything in the way the charter is currently written that allows for a holdover, but in your council rules, at the first meeting of the council, it provides that the mayor presides and may appoints a temporary clerk, so that's what I would see as what would function in the interim.
Okay, so then the mayor gets to choose who the clerk is going to be, at least on a temporary basis.
A temporary clerk, correct.
A temporary clerk. So, there's political. There's one person choosing somebody, so that would be political too. Let me just go on a little bit more if you don't mind, because this is important. Those of us who've served the longest, Jay and I, both know the system is not working well, okay? It is not working well. The staff is in an uproar every 2 years because they don't know who's going to come in as the clerk and they don't know if their jobs are secure. And frankly, I have witnessed, this is the fourth upheaval that I've been through, watching the panic set in among the staff, not knowing what's going to change or not change. So I have to agree with Jay that the system needs some definite tweaking on here. And that's why I like the 6 years. That's why I've always said I like the 6 years. But nobody on this council except me has brought forward any qualifications in any form. And so I look at this and say, this is a political appointee at this point in time. That's why I can't vote for it. We need a clerk who's a neutral party, who will not be taking part in policy decisions. I'm really, frankly, uncomfortable with any mayor. I know that's the code, the charter, and the mayor gets to choose a temporary clerk until we vote in a clerk, but we don't know what we're going to get from any particular mayor, not this mayor or any other mayor. So we've got a problem. And the first problem is the upheaval in the staff. The second problem that we've got is the very, very steep learning curve of a brand new clerk in the county. I think Jay would agree with me with that. And the third problem that we have is that the new clerk may or may not, and usually does not, understand the election process locally, much less nationally. And the fact that you would have a 6-year term allows that learning curve to take place, and then it keeps going. But at this point, without anything else except the 6 years, I have to say I can't support. I'm sorry. Am I being interrupted?
It's point of order. You got to respect that.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear him say point of order. I just heard mumbling.
Okay, Mr. Iligan.
The 5-minute rule.
Mr. Clerk, is the 5 minutes up? Okay.
I was.
Okay, you can just finish your statement, and then I need to make
Thank you for allowing me to finish my sentence. As written, it is addressing one of the three major issues that I see, and for that reason, I don't feel comfortable supporting this as it is currently written. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ford. Council members, I was reminded that during council we allow 2 rounds of discussion for council members, and I just allowed Ms. Ford a third opportunity. I want to ask your opinion if now you would all like another opportunity to speak, or
I want
Drew
my...
hasn't had a second opportunity. Ms. Ford?
You know, I realize we're at council, but this is probably one of the most important things that we're going to deal with that's going to impact the next council, and I think we should have great latitude.
I do agree this is an important issue, and I would like to give everyone a chance to maybe just a third, especially since I gave Ms. Ford another opportunity, at least one more opportunity for those
Chair?
who would like to. Mr. Onishi?
Yeah, I would like to call for the question.
Okay. Mr. Onishi, I know Mr. Kanuha didn't have a second opportunity, but do you want to go forward with the call for the question?
Okay, no, well, you can let Mr. Kanoa, because I only went one time too, and I think we had enough discussions already, and we got to go one more time anyway, so. But you can go with Mr. Kanoa. Then after him, then can I get the floor, please?
Mr. Kanuha, you did want to speak, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give Mr. Kanuha another opportunity, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you. I'm just trying to, maybe this is a question for Ms. Stebbins. The language reads, may remove the county clerk from office at any time for cause. Can you explain what for cause means?
I think that's probably a good question to direct to Human Resources, but I mean, in general, in employment law, for cause sort of carries the meaning of just cause, and there's elements to that. This is an appointed position which essentially serves at will, so there is an argument, one viewpoint would be that basically that can be any reason, for any particular reason at all, because the position is one that's not covered by any collective bargaining agreement or subject to civil service laws. So basically they serve just at the will of the council and could be removed for any reason at all.
Okay, thank you. Because I had a concern that, we could be stuck with somebody that, we didn't think was appropriate for that position, and we couldn't get rid of them and just try to figure out what was for cause, at the will of the council, or so that's just a question I wanted clarification on, and if any other council members wanted clarification on as well. So, okay, thank you.
Council members, we do have one more reading of this bill, so some of these questions can still be addressed.
Madam Clerk, I think Mr. Onishi requested to speak after Mr. Kanuha.
Yes.
Mr. Onishi. Go ahead, Mr. Onishi.
Can I call for the question?
Second.
Okay. We have a call for the question made by Mr. Onishi and a second by Mr. Kern. Can we take a voice vote on that? All in favor of call for the question, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I believe we have 9 ayes, and I would like to take a roll call vote on Bill 253, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Ford?
On the call for the question.
No.
This is on
No.
the main Bill 253, the main motion.
No.
Okay, no.
Mr. Elegan?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Kanalua, aye.
Mr. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
No.
Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
No.
Mr. Yoshimoto? Aye. Chair Yoff?
Aye.
Chair Yoff, there are 6 ayes and 3 noes.
Okay, thank you. The bill will move to a final reading. We have 6 ayes and 3 noes, right?
Yes,
Thank you very much.
that's correct.
Now we will go to Bill 257.
Number 13-65 as amended, the operating budget for the County of Hawaii for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. Appropriates revenues in the state grants, state routes to safe routes to school (SRTS) program grant account $100,000 and appropriates the same to the SRTS program grant account. Funds would be used towards the SRTS program's goal of improving the ability of children to walk or bicycle safely to school. Reference Communication 897, introduced by Ms. Poindexter, first reading June 4, 2014.
Ms. Poindexter.
Motion to approve Bill 258.
257.
Sorry. A motion to approve Bill 257. Sorry.
Okay, moved by Ms. Poindexter, second by Mr. Iligan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9 ayes. Bill 257 is adopted. Now we're on 258.
Bill 258 amends ordinance number 13-65 as amended the operating budget for the County of Hawaii for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. Increases revenues in the state grants Department of Health tobacco sting grant account $2,900 and appropriates same to the Department of Health tobacco sting grant account. Funds would be used towards the efforts of the police department to prevent the sale of tobacco to minors. Reference Communication 898, introduced by Ms. Poindexter, first reading June 4th, 2014.
Ms. Poindexter.
Motion to approve Bill 258.
Moved by Ms. Poindexter, second by Mr. Iligan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are 9 ayes. Moving to reports.
Reports. Financial report. Monthly budget status report for the month ended June 30th, 2014 from the Department of Finance.
I can have a motion to file the communication.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Kanuha, second by Mr. Yoshimoto. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. There are 9 ayes.
Move to adjourn?
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Kern and second by Mr. Yoshimoto to adjourn this meeting. Any discussion? No. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are 9 ayes. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, council members.